And we're live.
Hey, what's going on, peeps?
Hello.
This is Keenan. I'm your host of Top to Bottom with a guest host today.
Yeah.
Sarah Hicks.
I'm so excited to be here.
She's Canadian, is Sarah. Sarah, are Canadians really nicer than Americans?
No, they're not. They just say sorry and excuse me more, I think. I think Americans are warmer, more friendly. Always like going on vacation down there. I feel like people are nicer. Maybe it depends on the city.
So it's a brand that they can't hold up to.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Whoa. I'm not going to go down that road. A lot of Canadians are going to be mad right now.
100%. And to all of our viewers who do not know who Sarah Hicks is, she was previously the director of coaching and consulting at Predictable Revenue and is now the director of sales at Fliip. And a little fun fact, as an SDR, she reverse engineered and reworked Becc's personalization at scale at her old company and even unpacked it with Becc on the Predictable Revenue podcast together. So yeah, I'm super excited to have you on the podcast, Sarah.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm glad to step in for Becc. So nice. What an honor.
Of course. And so with that, we are on to our very first segment of this podcast, which is
Email Teardown.
Sorry, there's a little bit of awkward silence in between while it does the segment intro, but this is the segment where Keenan and Sarah tear down emails and messages sent over to us. Now to the first email, this one, the subject is prospecting opportunity. It says, "Hi, Jim. I hope things are going well at A Sales Guide this year. I'm reaching out because we've successfully boosted sales at a number of other staffing firms, and we want to see if we can help you too. We offer sales consulting, appointment setting, and other sales outreach services that are well suited for the staffing industry. If we could help your sales team be even more efficient, would you be interested in learning more?" And then there's no ending. So, Keenan, what do you think about this email?
I mean, come on, man. I mean, this is ridiculous. Let's start with the fact that they call me Jim. All right. Right out of the gate, that's enough to fucking piss me off. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, they use the old name of my company. So now they got my name wrong. They got my company name wrong. Right. Then they said other staffing firms. We're not a staffing firm. So now they don't even know what we do for business. So wrong name, wrong company name, wrong business. And then they turn around and say, we offer sales consulting. That is literally like calling up McDonald's and saying, hey, we offer direction on how to flip burgers, right? I don't get it. Like I don't literally get who did this, what the point is. This thing is a shit show from beginning to end.
What about you, Sarah? What do you think about this email?
Yeah, I got to say, this is probably one of those ones that was on some big list and just got slapped through automation. And no one has looked at this list to confirm if anyone's a good fit. There's definitely no research happening or personalization happening because, yeah, 1 millisecond on Keenan's LinkedIn profile and you'd be like, maybe not a good prospect for me, a sales consultant for a staffing firm. Mm-hmm. None of that is going to resonate with Keenan. So I think it's proof that you can't just do the mass email thing. And I think we know that by now. We know that doesn't work. If you're like really, really specific and you can get really narrow on your list that you're building, yes, sure, you can. You can do your relevance thing and you can get away with, a one-to-many, but you can't just be firing off irrelevant stuff to any old buddy.
Mm-hmm.
You say we know this by now, but yet these emails are more common, not less common, more common.
It's true. And that's part of my thing that I'm saving for the end. That's the thing that grinds my gears is that I'm still getting these messages.
Mm-hmm. Well, on to the next message. This one's actually an automated text, but it says, on January 12th, they say, "Hey, Becc, my name is Wayne, and I help people find more affordable personal health insurance. Are you interested in discussing your options?" Then 2 days later, they say, "Hey, Becc, I'm sure you are very busy. I specialize in reducing cost without sacrificing benefits for personal health insurance. Is this of interest?" Then a month later, they text again, "Hey, Becc, reached out about a month ago. As a licensed healthcare advisor, I help people find better health insurance. Are you open to discussing your options?" And to put the nail in the coffin, a month later, they say, "Hey, Becc, it's Wayne, and I contacted you a few months ago. I specialize in health insurance. Are you open to discussing more options? Sarah, why don't you start us off with this one? What do you think about
Okay. Well, if there's one glimmer of hope for this person, it's some persistence. So we'll give them that. But first of all, pretty sure you're not allowed to just cold text people if they haven't opted in. Pretty sure there's a regulatory issue happening here. So Wayne, go double check your laws. But I think the bigger issue is that it's like me. It's like me. I do this thing. I don't care if that's relevant to you. I don't know anything about you, but I do this thing. So give me the time. Me. I do this thing. None of that research. It's not good.
100%. Well, what about you, Keenan? What do you think about this?
So everything Sarah said, but I want to add a little piece to it. There are few industries that are as complex as health insurance. So this person is sitting on a mountain should be sitting on a mountain of knowledge that they can attack this in ways to help Becc recognize that she could be paying too much, should be lacking certain coverage. She may not be totally covered in certain areas, that she may be exposed. And he could have used any one of those as an intriguing angle to get back to pause and say, wait, I may not have the coverage I need. I may be at risk. But he doesn't touch any of that. So he suggests he's not a real, what do you call it? A real
broker or whatever.
Yeah. An expert, a real expert.
Mm-hmm.
You could have got me before you waited. That was nice of you.
Yeah, because I wanted to make sure you got the word. The eventually got to the word expert. You know.
Yeah. I mean, he really missed an opportunity. I think there are certain industries where the level of complexity in knowledge sits with the rep more than the buyer. Sure. And if you're in one of those industries and you don't recognize it and you don't lead with that, you're a dumbass.
And with that, we're on to the next segment of this podcast, which is
Sales Mythology.
This is the segment where Sarah and Keenan demystify common myths in the sales industry. So we're going to start out with you, Sarah. The first sales myth is a senior SDR with experience is always better than one without.
Mm-hmm. I got to say hard no on that. In my experience, having built SDR teams, hired SDRs, been an SDR, there are soft skills that make you good at being an SDR, and there are hard skills that make you good at being an SDR. And the soft skills are like confidence, great communicator, resilient, self-starter, all those types of things. And then the hard skills are like, has made cold calls before, can write a cold email, blah, blah, blah. The hard skills can be taught. The soft skills cannot. So I would rather take somebody who's like a grinder, who's a go-getter, who's a great communicator, and who's maybe a little scrappy and teach them the ropes than take somebody who is just skilled in that they have done that thing before. It doesn't mean that they were a very good SDR just because they have experience as an SDR.
Got you. Now, what about you, Keenan? What do you think about this?
I'm 100% on board with that. I mean, I hate the word experience for starters. So I want to double down on what Sarah said about the soft skills. And I don't think enough organizations at all spend enough time uncovering what soft skills are best required for any position. Be perfectly frank, like quick, left turn, go out, everybody, and take a look at, if you can, the job descriptions of CEOs or CROs or even vice presidents or anything, and see how many times the word leadership is in that job description. It's almost zero. Okay, it's almost zero. And if it is, it's very superfluous. Yet I could make a very sound argument that the most important trait of a fucking leader, non-IC, is their leadership skills. Right? Which are soft skills. Yes, you can work on them, etc. So I'm taking this back to what Sarah said. We spend so much time focusing on experience, which in my opinion is the worst thing to focus on, because you focus on soft skills and expertise. So ideally, I would like someone who has the expertise, regardless of how much experience they have, and the soft skills. If I don't have the expertise, but I have all the soft skills, then I can teach them the other shit, as Sarah said, and I can shape that person. But the soft skills are most important, hands down. She's 100% correct.
Got you. So the next sales myth for today is cold email templates will enable most SDRs to hit quota. Keenan, what do you think about this?
Cold email templates?
Yeah, so email templates. If you use email templates, will enable.
You're trying to back me into a fucking Becc TVIT, right? I mean, I'll go with template. Yep, I'll accept. I'll take it as a template. If the template is interpreted as script, pound sand, right? But I can get behind a template because, I mean, if you don't have a template, basically what you're arguing is that you're writing every single email independently, and that doesn't scale. So, yeah, I'm going to go with that, and I'll let Sarah expound on it, but I'm going to take that. Wait, we're not taking it, leave it. What is this?
The sales myth.
Oh, yeah, sales myth. Yeah, okay, so that's a myth. Yeah, no. I'm good. I'm good with the template. I'm good with it. So Beck's going to be mad because it's supposed to be a myth, and it's supposed to be a dead no.
Well, Sarah, what do you think about this?
So I'm thinking back to like if I give SDRs, my assumption on this is like cold email template will enable them to hit quotas, which means if you give them the best cold email template, they don't have to pick up the phone. They don't have to go on LinkedIn, nothing else. Just that template will, like that sick template is going to enable everyone to hit quota. And I'm going to say no to that. Like,
agreed.
Maybe a really good template can get you a third of the way. Like you can probably bank on a third of your meetings coming through that really strong template, but it won't be the same one forever. You're going to have to continue to, test, iterate, and make it better. But I would say it won't enable you to hit quota.
So
there's still that work.
So I like what Sarah said. And actually, shame on me, because when I thought template in the form of an entire sequence. Right. So I'm glad Sarah went there. And that's probably my fault. I should have paid more attention to the question. But does anybody just send one email? So in my little head, it was a template of a bunch of templates that played out in a whole sequence. So if the question is one single template, no, it'll never work, because one email and say will never work. And again, maybe someday Sarah will come on the show again and we can debate this. I don't even know that email works anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole look, I like it. I want it to work. And maybe there are a few people who are way better and can pay way more attention at this than I can to come out with that perfect fucking email. But play this across 10,000 companies and email ain't working anymore. So yeah.
The next myth of today is industry changers won't make for good SDRs. Sarah, would you like to start us off on this one?
To be honest, I'm not sure exactly what this means. Industry changers won't make for good SDRs. Is that someone who's like trying to break the mold and like do their own type of sales strategy?
Well, no, the biggest thing is, for example, if you're going into the tech industry as an SDR and you come in through a different industry, construction industry, whatnot.
Not having industry experience.
Okay,
exactly.
Gotcha. So moving from one space to another as an SDR.
Yeah.
I'm going to argue that falls under the same umbrella as the senior SDR with experience is better than one, without. I think a great SDR with the great soft skills and some expertise on being an SDR would be very valuable moving from one industry to another. If you're banking just on skills and experience, it's probably not transferable. But if you've got all that other stuff that is what really makes up strong SDR chops, and they've made a couple of cold calls, who cares to who, I think they'll be good.
Gotcha. And Keenan, what do you think about this?
All right. Excluding doctor, lawyer, any regulated position, accountant with GAAP, like outside of anything like that. But let's talk about marketing. Let's talk about sales. Let's talk about bricklayer. Like, look, your understanding of the industry, the only thing that does for you is accelerate your onboarding and accelerate your first time to full, what am I trying to say? I can't talk today. Time to fully ramped.
Yeah.
Right. That's the only thing it does. After that, the person who didn't have the quote unquote industry expertise will know it. And if they're an actual better rep or a better SDR, they will surpass that person. So there's no example of more short-sightedness in the sales and marketing world than the idea that you can't do this job because you were an SDR in healthcare, you were an SDR in building, right? In building shit, construction. Thank you. And therefore you can't be one over here. And how about this? I'm gonna make it even worse. I literally still hear people say, we got to hire SDRs and AEs with SaaS experience. If they don't have SaaS experience, we're not going to hire them. Why don't just wear a fucking sign on your chest that says, I'm an idiot sales leader. Back to the point of leadership. If you're leadership and you're so fucking stupid that you believe that SaaS, which is simply an application hosted in the goddamn cloud, that's all it fucking is, take some unique selling methodology over someone selling something tangible or premise-based, you're a dipshit and you should go. So no, Jesus Christ, these people.
All right. So the last sales myth of today is all SDRs want to be AEs. Keenan, what are your thoughts on this one?
No, that's dumb. Some people like being SDRs. They like it. They're going to stay there and until they find something different. Now, I think the hard part is SDR is hard to have as a career because it's really hard to make a lot of money. But I think if there was a way for SDRs to continue to grow and make more money, then I think a whole bunch would stay there.
Now, Sarah, what do you think about this?
Yeah, same. I think if you're at a company that's got the commercial and then the enterprise and there's a path, there's tons of people that are just going to want to stick to honing that skill. But I also think there's a whole bunch of people who would rather go into management, and that path is SDR manager and then whatever else comes after that.
Okay, we got 46 seconds. I want to talk to the entire community. Is that okay, Min?
100%. Let me put you up on the main screen.
No, you don't got to do that. You don't get it. All right, listen up, everybody. If you're listening, I see who's listening. That's great comments. Keep up the interaction, everybody. But everybody who's listening, I want you to do me a favor. Tag 2 people that you think should be listening to the show right now. So in the comments, tag 2 people and say, hey, yo, you guys need to be listening. Okay. And then I'll randomly pick one person to get a free I'm a Gap Selling Badass t-shirt. And if you're not a Gap Selling Badass, pick a different t-shirt. Don't bring my brand down. Don't bring the brand down. You got to deliver.
Hey, it's a good shirt, but I feel so powerful with the siren. Okay, we're on to the next segment of our podcast, which is
Take it or leave it.
This is the segment where I introduce common sales tactics, and Keenan and Sarah let us know whether they would take it or leave it. So the first one of today is cold calls. Keenan, take it or leave it.
Oh, God. This is like just, I'm literally in purgatory right now. So if those of you happen to be Catholic or those of you have read Dante's
Inferno.
Yeah, Dante's Inferno, you'll understand where I'm coming from. And I'm not trying to avoid the question, and I really don't even want to take it as a TVIT. I just have this powerful gut feeling that at the macro level, cold call. All right, I'm going to have to go because people are going to listen to me, and I don't like to send people down the wrong road. So I'm going to say leave it with a asterisk. I haven't done enough homework and don't have enough data to support this as a ubiquitous recommendation. I know there are people such as Sarah who it's working for, but I know just as equal, if not a larger number of people where it's not working. Mm-hmm. And yes, that could be how they execute it. Yes, that could be they're doing it poorly, but that number tends to grow. And if something works, even if you do it poorly, it should be productive, and it's always a positive. Now, who's more positive? What I'm seeing now is the level of execution has to be so fucking good to get into the positive side. And there's way, way, way more people on the negative side. So I'm saying leave it with an asterisk because I don't want to. People, you got to figure it out for yourself right now. We are in a very interesting time.
What about you, Sarah? Take it or leave it?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I don't think there's any blanket statement here. Like, there's a massive caveat that I would have to throw on, and it's hugely dependent on your product, your market, all those things. Like, you're not cold calling CTOs of Fortune 500 companies and getting anywhere good. So don't leave it in that scenario. But if you are like Fliip and you're calling SMBs and you're calling people who do their business on their phone and they got a desk phone and all that kind of stuff, maybe like logistics, shipping, like those types of places seem to still have pretty good connect rate and you know, the people are receptive to the phone, then yes, I would take it. So yeah, you gotta know your market and know your product and know your audience, and then make the educated decision on that.
I like what you said there, Sarah. That was a good point. That was a really good point.
All right. So the next take it or leave it for today is relying on social selling to hit your quota. Sarah, take it or leave it.
I mean, I feel like I'm going to have to caveat all of these. I don't think I'm a black or white kind of gal, but I think relying on social selling to hit your quota, if you've built an incredible social brand and you have great engagement and you do a lot on social, and therefore there's this kind of trickle down effect where there's a lot happening in your comments, in your DMs, like you've got all this, you've got a network built out of it that you can use. Like, yeah, absolutely. You could probably rely on it 10 times over. You could probably build a team underneath you who can rely on it. But if any old SDR who's just starting it out in their career is like, you know what, LinkedIn only for me, and no one knows who you are, and you're just basically prospecting people, but through the channel of LinkedIn, that's a different story.
Got you. Now, Keenan, what do you think about this? Take it or leave it.
I don't think I could have said it any better than Sarah. So I'm leaving it. And the operative word is rely on.
Yeah.
Rely on. So again, if you have built already a powerful following in that subject and people are reaching out to you, et cetera, then yes, rely on it. And I would argue double down. If you haven't, no. Now, that being said, this is where I will take it back to our last conversation. I think organizations need to really sit back and evaluate how much are they spending in salary and what are they getting for that, and how much can they pull that back and create an entirely different inbound marketing environment to fill the cup of the SDRs through social. So I think social could be used collectively as an organization for the SDR and to rely on it solely and replace outbound, but that's a different question.
Okay, so the last take it or leave it for today is laying off reps based on seniority. Keenan, take it or leave it.
I'm going to give Sarah the last 40 seconds.
Okay.
You're a fucking idiot if you use seniority for anything. End of discussion.
All right, Sarah, close us out. You have 15 seconds. Take it or leave it.
Okay. My clarifier is, are we saying like when people get too senior, we let them go?
It's when you're laying people off, you're basing on like, oh, people who have more seniority.
More senior, they say more junior. No, absolutely not. No. Based on attitude, based on culture fit, based on quota attainment. I don't care how long they've been here.
Okay, for sure. I gave you a couple seconds extra, but
You're being nice today.
Yeah,
100%. We have a special guest. We got to treat her nicely. But on to the next segment of this podcast, my personal favorite segment of this podcast, which is
The Inbox.
This is the segment where Keenan and Sarah answer questions from our audience. And with that, I have the help of my trusty mailbox.
Inbox.
The inbox. Yes.
nice.
So this first letter comes from Amanda Shaw from Austin, Texas. She asks, I see a lot of sales techniques and tactics all over LinkedIn, but I can't help but feel salesy and gimmicky when using them in the field. My question is, in your opinion, where's the line between using tactics to sell more effectively and just manipulating prospects to further the deal? Sarah, what are your thoughts on this one?
So, at the beginning, we were talking about there are some fields where the sales rep holds all of that knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
In the vast majority of cases, the buyer these days is much more knowledgeable than they have been in the past. And they actually do have, either they already have or they have access to get that knowledge on their own, which means that buyers are way less easy to manipulate and can read that a lot more than they could back in the like door-to-door salesman days. Like, I'm a vacuum salesman and here you go, I know all about vacuums. So I would argue that if anything feels like you're manipulating, don't use it. If you can tell it's manipulation, so can they. There are so many tactics that are not manipulative, that are just like smart and are buyer centric and are in the best interest of the buyer and helping them achieve their goals. And I think you can rely on those and be completely authentic, and you can leave the gimmicks out.
So what's one of those tactics, Sarah?
I think I'm thinking back to the like real challenger sale type of stuff where you're sort of strong arming and if they're like, unwilling to make a decision in the moment, then pushing back on their pain points in maybe like an overly aggressive way where it's like, well, you told me this thing is going to happen. You don't want to solve that thing. So that sort of stuff, I think you can get there through other means these days. But I think it depends on the gimmick. Depends on what we're talking about.
So Keenan, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I think Sarah said, first, if it feels manipulative or feels gross, it is gross. So don't do it. Listen to yourself. Secondly, I was about to say, I don't think it should be tactics whatsoever inside of sales. There should be no tactics whatsoever. That's why I asked Sarah to define tactic. But using Sarah's definition of tactic, then yeah, I think there are some that are in the client's best interest. But I've said 1,000 times, and I feel like, The Who having to play a song since the 60s 10 billion times every time they go to a concert because people want to hear that song. I'll say this again. Your job is to help. That's your job. Your job is to help. You cannot help if you do not understand the problem. So therefore, if you don't spend the time to understand the problem, you're not selling. You're not helping. You're trying to sell. So I'm 100% with Sarah here. There should be no tactics, and there should never, ever feel manipulative, ever.
Gotcha. Okay, the next question is from Sandra Wong from Miami, Florida. She says, I am a sales major at university, but all we learn in school is how to role-play discovery and follow a rubric. I want to learn how to actually prospect and sell, but I feel like these role-playing skills won't translate to the real world. How can university students like me practice sales and hone our skills before entering the field? Keenan, what are your thoughts on this one?
So the first one, the role playing discovery, I absolutely love. So Sarah, no, not Sarah. What's the woman's name again?
Sandra.
Sandra, don't dismiss that one. Really being a really, really, really good discovery person or being able to diagnose a problem is a lifelong skill. I liken it to golf. You are never going to be an expert at it. Like golfers put it in the drink and put it in the hazard all the time in spite of being the best golfers in the world. So do not poo-poo that. Like embrace that every chance you get because discovery is by far the most important on the front end. As far as the rest of it, I guess I don't understand. What was the second half of it? Like, what are they making her do?
Whatchamacallit? They are making her do role plays and follow a rubric.
Yeah,
so.
What's the rubric? I'd be more inclined to what the rubric is. And depending on the rubric, I would agree with her. So I don't know what the rubric is, so I don't know how to answer on the other one. So I'll leave it at this and give the rest to Sarah. Just get good at diagnosing the problem. Just keep working on that over and over and over and over, and the rest will take care of itself.
Now, Sarah, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I would say the same. I think role playing is one of the most undervalued training, I don't know what you call it, devices that's out there. And honestly, Sandra, you're not going to get the real world experience until you're in that job anyway. Like there's nothing you could do on your own to prepare for that job because you don't know the product, you don't know the market, you don't know the team, you don't know the messaging, all that stuff. So I think if you're getting good at these like framework style things, which maybe that's what this rubric is, that's really good. That's the best thing you can be doing.
All right. And with that, we're on to the next segment of the podcast, which is Keenan's personal favorite segment of the podcast, which is
the challenge.
This is the segment where Keenan and Sarah break down a challenging subject within the sales industry. And today's challenge is, how do you outbound effectively via cold calls and cold emails when you have to? So, i.e., when you have a mandatory outbound self-source quota, etc. Keenan, would you like to start us off on this one?
Okay, I was going to say no, but I'm going to let the world end with Sarah because something tells me Sarah's going to be far more actionable because, again, I'm coming in biased. And when I say I'm coming in biased, everybody needs to understand that I am old. Okay, I'm told not to say that because it ages you. But when I started, I won. I literally won because I was the most aggressive, made more calls, had better way of. I was challenging people before I even understood what challenging meant when they got on the call. I had an intuition of how to actually gap sell, even though I didn't know that's what I was doing. So I literally crushed every position I was as an individual contributor because they would actually answer the phone. Like in those days, you could make 50 calls or 30 calls a day and 10 to 15 people would answer, right? So I'm a huge, I come from a place where I loved outbound and believed that the best outbound guy or girl would win all day long, okay? But I'm seeing we're in a different world. When you literally can have a dialer call 1,000 calls and only 9 people pick up, that's a whole different ballgame. So what I'm going to say is, again, sort of what we went to earlier, if you have to do this, you've got to be more creative. You have to have more drive. You have to be, I'm using the word lately, maniacal. You have got to be maniacal about making this work. You've got to leverage creativity that you've never even thought of in the world. You've got to push the envelope. You've just got to bury yourself in this. And I personally don't think most people have the personality for that, to be perfectly frank. It's just not in their blood. And so you got to understand who you're calling. You got to understand why you're calling these people first as opposed to something else. You got to understand what is your angle and why do you think that matters to them. Like you literally have to lather yourself up in their world, their problems, the level of intrigue, why you think they would pick up the phone in the first place. Why would they even give a shit about what you're going to say in a second? And it cannot be rote. Is that rote? It can't be rote. It can't be drab. I don't even have the words. I just don't have the words. So with that, I don't know. So I'm going to let Sarah walk you through it. Other than just treating it like if you'll lose your life, you'll die if you don't get the appointment set. Other than treating it like that, I don't think you can be successful. So I really don't. I just don't.
Strong words. Sarah, what do you think about this?
No, I totally agree that we're in a completely different world. Like the approaches that you could use for outbound 5 years ago, 10 years ago, just don't work today. And so I think if you have to do outbound, first of all, sales leaders or, revenue leaders, business leaders as a whole should be having a big think about if outbound is actually the way to go for their company, because a lot of the companies, it's just not going to work. Like you're in a saturated market. There's a lot of competition, transactional sales, whatever. I could go on. It's not going to work. You're going to spend a ton of money to do it and your reps are not going to hit quota and it's not on them. But if you are in a market where, you've got something new or it is way better than the competition, it's like something that you can position well, the people pick up the phone, the people answer their emails, like that sort of thing, then I think there's a good way to do it. And it's a lot of these things that we were talking about. You got to know your market, know your people, know their pains, their day-to-day, so that you can come out the gate hyper relevant, hyper personalized with, here's the thing that I think you're struggling with. Here's the benefit if we get rid of that. Is that worth exploring? And then persistence and doing it every way you can to try and get those meetings on the books, because it's still hard. Even if you are in one of these markets where it works, it's not easy. It will never be easy.
How do you figure that stuff out, Sarah? Like how do you figure out? Here's a good one. How do you figure out if you're in that if it's good for your company or not?
Yeah. I think it's a lot of that really foundational work. Like go back to your kind of go-to-market thinking, because I think a lot of people get ahead of themselves and they think like, okay, we got a whole bunch of inbound, stuff, and therefore we can do outbound and we will replicate that success. And it's just simply not true. Like you've got to be able to look at why those people came to you. And if you can replicate those circumstances to some degree or find those triggers from an outbound perspective. So if you're a company that has a whole bunch of people coming to you with like very unique use cases, they're like, this one weird thing that I need to do, can you do it? And then you build that feature for them. You can't outbound that. You're not finding those people. No. You need a scalable way to find them. Whereas if you're some category defining new product that does something completely differently and really makes people's lives a million times easier, you can, mark tangible ways that you can improve their lives and their business. And that is easy to communicate, which is another big one. Like if you've got a really complex product that you would need like 25 different emails to even get through what you can do, it's not going to happen for you. So I think it's back to go to market, looking at where your customers are coming from and looking if you could replicate that in a scalable way. And then are those people accessible on phone, email, whatever? Can you get the contact data? Is the ROI going to be there because your deal size is big enough? Like there's a whole bunch of different pieces that have got to go into it before you think that's the right move.
Do you think things have changed so much that organizations really need to sit back and actually do a cost analysis or an ROI assessment on their outbound?
100%. I think everybody should be coming back and really having a look at what their most profitable acquisition channel is and how they could scale that up, rather than thinking like, okay, outbound feels like the right thing to do, and so we'll continue to pour cash into this, thinking that it might, and look at your top of funnel and then look at what actually closes. Like the close rate on outbound is minuscule in comparison to inbound. So you might be doing well at the top of funnel and it may not ever really be making its way all the way through.
I like what Matthew Morgan, we only have one challenge, right?
Yeah, we only have one challenge.
Yeah. So I like what Matthew Morgan said. Matthew, well done. Matthew said, look at personas, people who inbounded. Take what you see there and look for similar roles. So I like what he said. I don't like similar roles piece. I mean, I can live with that. I like similar use case or similar problems. I would rather he said that. But still, I like what Matthew's doing there. Is that an approach to improve your outbound?
I think absolutely. Like you can't be trying to go for outbound if you have no evidence that anyone has ever wanted your thing. Like you can look at your inbound to get the data on who might want to buy, but it's often different. Like your inbound buyer persona is often different from your outbound one. So yes, that's your starting point. And yes, you've got to test that, but then you've also got to incorporate some other roles, other industries, whatever that might be, because typically it's not exactly the same.
Okay, now this is interesting. Now you've piqued my interest. How is it that you believe the I think you said the ICP or the buyer persona of the outbound is different than the inbound?
Yeah,
I'm struggling with that one.
I'll give you a bit of an example. Sorry, my dog just barked.
Bark away, man. Bark away.
It was me. Okay, so
you're no dog, Sarah. You're no dog.
So here's an example for you. So predictable revenue as an example. So a similar type of business to yours, helping people grow and scale through outbound sales, blah, blah, blah. A lot of people that come in through inbound are companies that are small and they're trying to scale or they're trying to grow for the first time. Fine. Because if they're coming in inbound, that customer acquisition cost is lower. We can take a smaller deal size for a company that can't afford to spend as much money. Now, flip that over to outbound. I do not want to prospect a ton of tiny little companies to only get then the 5% of the market that's in that active buying window to buy something, because there's no ROI in that. So I'm automatically, even just from kind of a company size standpoint, having to go like, we can take SMB through enterprise through inbound. Good. We don't really mind, but I have to go mid-market and above if I'm going outbound to get the ROI. Because, it used to be a $10,000 ARR. Now it's more like a $20,000 ARR that really makes sense for a deal size for outbound. So that's one simple way that they're different. But then it could also be, like I was mentioning, like if your inbound market, you can't find them in any real way because you can't look on a Crunchbase or a Zoom Info or whatever to find that trigger, then you got to do something different to find those people.
Okay. So you said two things that jumped out at me. So I like where you went with the whole idea of different ICP. I never looked that way. And I 100% agree. The people that inbound in many cases could be smaller companies or lower level, et cetera. I love it. Right. And you don't want to outbound those people. So that goes back to my point where I said, I didn't like that he said, look at the persona. And I said, I'd rather you look at the problems.
Yeah.
Why are they leading in? And what problems are they trying to solve? That's why I like that answer better. But there's something else you said that jumped out at me. And just so many people don't seem to get this. And I'm sure you do. And I don't think you meant this, but you talk about active buyer. Right? Or some variation of that. Like these people are realizing they need a new CRM. They're realizing they need a new warehouse management system. They're realizing they need to make a change, or pondering, do they need to make a change? What I have argued, I will argue till I'm blue in the face, that the majority of good salespeople are those who help create oh shit. Okay. Sorry. Buzz me. I'm looking at the wrong one. I'm looking at the live one. Buzz me. Yeah, that's all right.
Would you like to complete your thought? Or are we going into the last segment of this podcast?
I got to stop looking at this because that's 15, 20 seconds ahead. I just would say not enough people understand that the greatest salespeople don't react to demand. They create demand. And they're actually able to get buyers to recognize, oh, shit, we actually aren't in a buying cycle of this, but damn right, we should be.
Yeah, it's true. 95% of your outbound deals are not going to come from the people that are in an active buying window. They're going to come from relentless follow-up and nurture. Yeah.
And then if we got to lead with the problem that way, you cannot lead with a product in that fashion. Yeah. So, all right, that was good stuff. Yes, back to you, man.
All right, we're on to the last segment of our podcast, which is the rant. Now, this doesn't have a segment intro to it, but This segment is the last segment where Sarah and Keenan give us their closing thoughts and share with us what's on their mind today. So, Sarah, let's start out with you.
Yeah.
What is your rant for today?
Yeah, I got to say that like a wound that was just reopened when we started this episode is that totally irrelevant prospecting message. Like I get them on LinkedIn all the time and people email me and I'm like, you wasted a credit or money on sending this message to me about a thing that I clearly have nothing to do with. People all the time calling me about like, hey, do you need us to like develop your website? I was like, what website? I don't have a business. Like, come on, you guys. And so that's my big sales rant is just the not even caring who you're reaching out to with that generic message. You know that salesperson's just sending that out to anybody that they can get the contact data and then just firing it off with automation. And it's just, we're not in that world. I'm not into it.
Keenan, what is your rant for today?
That was her rant, and do you see how nice she was with it? I don't know. Canadians seem nice to
a little.
me. I mean, she just really didn't just go for it. Like she could have just buried these people, but she just was so nice about it. My rant is around the idea of salespeople in sales organizations from the top all the way down, accepting this concept of budget as being a reason why people don't buy. There is few examples, in my opinion, that demonstrate how broken sales is when we continue to accept that budget is the reason somebody didn't buy. Now, look, I get it. Like anything else, there are varying levels of complexity to the budget question. And when you're in a big organization selling a big thing and you don't have access to the very last person, then yeah, I would say they said it's budget, but you couldn't get to the right person to show them that budget decision crushed them. And here's how I want to break it. I'm going to, rather than rant and just yell at you for accepting this and telling you that you're a horrible sales organization or a horrible sales leader or a horrible salesperson if you continue to accept budget is the reason you're not selling. What it is really about is the fact that you haven't understood why that decision was made. And let me walk you through this. It's the simplest rubric or method in the world. If I don't want to spend or haven't budgeted $200,000 for your product or service, and you can't look at them and say, okay, I appreciate that, but based on our conversation, you told me that you're losing $100,000 a month, or you continue to lose to the competition to the tune of X, or your churn is declining to the point of your neutral new business in churn, and therefore that you are not going to hit your next level, and therefore you're not going to get the next tranche from your VC, which equates to $2 million. I simply say, I'm confused. Why is it you're not willing to spend $200,000 to keep from fucking losing $500,000? What did I miss there? Help me understand what I'm missing here. And here's the flip side for all you knuckleheads are grounded and telling me why I'm wrong. If I do the math myself and I'm like, oh, they're losing $200,000, but it's going to cost them $500,000 to fix it, and there's no guarantee it'll be fixed, I'm like, you're right. I wouldn't spend the money right now either because budgets are tight. There's no guarantee you're going to get the revenue. It's too risky. But if it's the other way around and you can show it's a fact that they're going to lose 500 and they won't spend 200 to stop from losing 500, that's shitty sales. So the bottom line is 90% of the time, 80% of the time, I don't give a shit, but more than half, it wasn't a budget issue. Your dumbass couldn't show them how the cost of inaction was more expensive than the budget. So I literally say, if you can't afford to spend 200, you cannot afford to lose $500,000. Can't afford it. But here's the crazy part. The reason that doesn't happen, Sarah, let me throw it to you. Why is it that most salespeople can't do that?
There's just not the persistence, and it's the easiest road out to take that and say like, oh, no budget. Okay.
But what? Okay. But it's not just persistence. What is missing? What don't salespeople do that doesn't allow them to do that?
I think deep enough discovery into like the impact of the pain.
They never actually define the problem of inaction. They never dig enough to find out what the current state, impact, problem, and root causes are, and then define them all so they can look at me and say, oh shit, if you don't change, this is the cost moving forward. The minute you get there, budget changes in a heartbeat. But no one does that, including the buyer. So here we are. Don't have the budget. The buyer says, I can't spend $200,000. They lose $500,000 over 6 months. And they're like, gee, what happened? And the rep doesn't understand it, and they don't sell it, and they both lose. I'm tired of it. Get over it. Learn to fucking sell and stop blaming budget.
Grow up.
Yes, grow up.
So that's our podcast. Thank you so much, Sarah, for guest hosting this
Thanks for having
episode.
me. It was awesome.
Okay.
Keenan, would you like to show us out?
Well, hold on. I gotta hook up someone up. Here we go. Let's go with on the t-shirt. Let's go with John Runyon. John Runyon. I picked John because I loved how he said, get in here, you're missing this, or something like that. So Runyon, DM me and I'll give you the way to get your free t-shirt. Well done, everybody. I'm Keenan. This is Top to Bottom. Same place, same time, every Wednesday. I'm going to butcher this. 12 o'clock Mountain, 2 o'clock Eastern, 11 o'clock Pacific, some shit like that.
100%.
Yeah, you like that?
You got
So thank
all
you very
of them.
much. Sarah, close us out.
It's been a pleasure. Guys, take what you've learned, apply it. I want to see some better prospecting out there. I want to see some better closing out there.
Perfect.
Yes, thank you, Sarah. We're glad to have you.